Hello, everyone, and thanks to all who organized this event today, and to the other speakers and panelists and colleagues who we are marching together with towards this in this long haul to seeing the kind of society we know is possible. My name is Shailly Gupta Barnes. I'm the policy director for the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, and the Kairos Center for Religions, Rights, and Social Justice. We have now organized this campaign across 45 states to change the narrative on these 5 interlocking injustices of systemic racism, poverty, ecological devastation, militarism, and the false narrative of Christian nationalism. And we've organized this campaign by prioritizing the 140 million poor and low-income people who live at the center of these injustices every day. And we've organized it to build the power of those 140 million people coming together across all lines of division: race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, age, faith, issue, geography, to unleash a new and unsettling force in this nation. And these are times, in fact, when such a force is necessary. As we saw the first weeks of 2021, we are in the depths of multiple crises that require a new paradigm shift. We have a political crisis, as we saw on January 6th, an economic crisis that continues to unfold, a health crisis that continues to claim thousands of lives every month. And we know that this didn't begin with the pandemic. This is the effect of deep inequities that have taken root in our economic and political systems, and and have impacted the lives of at least 140 million people every day. And of course, we have seen improvements this year. The American Rescue Plan began to move us in a new direction. It put poverty on the national agenda in a new way for the first time in at least 25 years, creating an opening for the kinds of bold policies that we've been pushing for a very long time around a guaranteed income, around healthcare and housing, and more. We're seeing finally people are receiving this vaccine and able to see the signs of the sign of overcoming the pandemic and crisis we've been in for the past year. And we heard this week that at least one forever war will be ending in Afghanistan. These are significant changes from the kinds of policies and priorities that we've been facing for the past decades, and against which the Poor People's Campaign and so many others have been organizing for years. And yet, at the same time, we must also recognize that these are but steps along the way. They are significant steps, but we have still so far yet to go. And we must see that gap as clearly as we do the opportunities that are being taken right now. In the middle of this Derek Chauvin trial in Minnesota, there was yet another police killing. Even with the announcement around Afghanistan, we know the Pentagon budget is in fact higher than it has been in previous years. The cruelty of our immigration system persists. Indigenous sacred lands remain threatened. Our low-wage workers, who are predominantly women and people of color, are still working for poverty wages, without benefits, without paid leave, without health care, and without the protections of unions. We still have this avalanche of evictions and foreclosures and hunger that we have not fully grasped as a nation, and that is, steadily building steam and coming our way. Some estimates even show that the 140 million increased to 150 million, even with the relief payments and expansions in SNAP and unemployment insurance. And we're seeing now, after the November elections, that our democracy is under a new wave of attacks. There have been hundreds of voter suppression bills introduced in more than 40 states. Anti-protest bills are being introduced in dozens of states that are making it difficult and criminal to exercise our fundamental constitutional rights to demand a better and more accountable government. This is the context that we must look at when we assess any gains that have been made so far, as well as any proposals that are being made at this time. And in fact, we have to measure these gaps that remain because there is still such a great need to do more. This is not just to be critical, but to offer a perspective around which we can, in fact, build this country back better than it was, maybe better than it ever has been. This begins, in our analysis, with prioritizing the 140 million poor and low-income people in everything we're doing, in all of our policies, in all of our programs, in the relationships we develop and maintain and build and organize around, and even how we understand our place and time in this moment of US and world history. We live in a time of unprecedented abundance and productive capacity, yet have not been able to move that in the direction of meeting all of our needs. There is something fundamentally wrong with that. It speaks to the profound spiritual death that Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King referenced in 1967, but also to what we believe that our economy and society must be organized around and who must benefit from it. In fact, we have to understand that prioritizing the 140 million is not a question of charity, but a question of survival. Because unless the poor and low-income people in our society are provided for, we are moving in the direction of greater inequality, greater climate crisis, greater threats against our people and our planet. In fact, this approach to this idea of centering the 140 million is not only the right thing to do, it is also good economics, lifting from the bottom rather than waiting for wealth to trickle down. This has been confirmed in recently through this report from the London School of Economics that in fact looked at trickle-down tax policies over the past 5 decades and found while these policies consistently benefit the wealthy, they have had no meaningful effect on unemployment or economic growth. We saw this, in fact, in the 2017 tax cuts with the Trump administration. These tax cuts that were given to corporations were immediately translated over into nearly $1 trillion in stock buybacks. These corporations basically gave that money back to themselves. We have to compare that kind of economics with the fact that every dollar that goes into a low-wage worker's pocket grows our economy. It gets multiplied into more than that dollar. We see this, in fact, with many kinds of income and economic supports that go directly to poor and low-income people. A report from the Brookings Institute showed that the COVID policies that had the greatest impact on GDP were those that went to financially vulnerable households. So really, lifting from the bottom is an economic theory that can benefit us all, that can fundamentally transform our economy. Now, what would this look like? These days we're hearing more and more about this $2 trillion infrastructure plan. Well, if we were prioritizing the 140 million in our infrastructure, it would look like transportation infrastructure that not only ensures that we can get to where we're going safely, but that the things the 140 million people who are poor and low income need can get to these communities. It would mean water service and sanitation delivery. It would mean access to healthful foods. It would also mean keeping things out of our communities that harm them, like pollutants and fossil fuel industries and military bases and prisons. It would mean greening our economy, beginning with those communities that are first and worst impacted by climate change. This would look like housing infrastructure that ends homelessness, and community infrastructure that ensures that we not only have quality public schools that meet our children's needs during school, but also after school, in libraries and recreation centers, and the kind of 21st century communications technology that is available but must be accessible to all. It would look like care infrastructure from childhood to our twilight years. It would look like public health infrastructure that actually provides for our health and not just in a pandemic. It would look like a jobs infrastructure that provides opportunities for us to thrive and not just barely survive. Of course, this would mean shifting our priorities away from war and weapons we don't need and fossil fuels and mass incarceration, and instead investing the abundance that we do have to build up vibrant communities where we can build our economy, where we can thrive no matter where we're born, what color our skin, who we love, or who we want to be in this world. This is what we're organizing for in the Poor People's Campaign, and with the people on this call, and with so many more. And given the moment we're in, this is exactly the orientation we need to build this country up and usher in a period of economic, political, social, spiritual, and moral revival. We've seen some early signs of this. It is now on us to push this opening, to bend that arc of history towards justice, and create a whole new paradigm as we say In the Poor People's Campaign, now is the time that we must move forward together and not one step back. Thank you.